Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Rex Pickett, who is kind of a literary fiction author, but he's also, he will explain a little bit about what he thinks he is, or what his books are. Go ahead, Rex.
Hi, Selena. Thanks for having me. Well, my new novel, The Archivist, is, it's a pretty big novel. And, it is, I guess, technically it's a mystery, but it doesn't really start like, formulaic mysteries do with a dead body on page one and a serial killer has a city on the edge or whatever. So I guess in some ways it's literary fiction as well. And I kind of liken it to Raymond Chandler's The Long Goodbye, not to compare myself to the great Raymond Chandler, but when he wrote The Long Goodbye, one of the last novels of his life, he was trying to escape the genre, but he couldn't do it. So he stayed within the genre, but he really wasn't interested in a whodunit anymore. He was interested in bigger themes. So with The Archivist, I really am interested in bigger themes about, I don't know, the power of love, for one thing. It's a very powerful, theme in there. The ethics of the archival profession, which we don't see in books at all. And through a lot of research, I learned a lot about the profession and what archivists do, and and about power struggles within a university, the kind of hierarchy of power and money. But ultimately, it is a mystery because there's a person who's dead, and I don't want to give anything. It's by accidental drowning, but maybe it wasn't.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the Archivist? Just a little bit about the story.
Well, the archivist is about a 27-year-old project archivist, and a project archivist is somebody who comes in for one job and goes out. So they're like subcontracted in a way. And so the main character is a 27-year-old. She's not naive at all, Emily Snow, and she comes to a fictional university in Southern California based on where I went to school, the University of California, San Diego, and where the Rex Pickett papers are. And that was really formed the inspiration for it. And she comes in to finish up the papers of a very famous author who's been shortlisted for the Nobel. And her predecessor had been found dead, and it was ruled an accidental drowning. So as she gets into finishing up the papers, and there's it's a big acquisition for this university. And it turns out this author is also married to an extremely wealthy Loyoite, and she's about to give a gift of 25 million to the library. But our young 27-year-old finds in the dark archives. So this is out in, not everything is physical in the archives. It can be out on servers. It could be stuff that's never been printed out. It could be stuff that you don't even know is in the dark archives. And I learned this through, in interviewing archivists and talking to them and everything else. And so she finds a treasure trove of love letters between her dead predecessor and this famous married novelist. And now we go back a year earlier and I tell that story. And we go back and forth between the stories and they start to come together. And we realize maybe it wasn't an accidental drowning, and there's a tragic love story, and she comes across documents and papers. It turns out that her predecessor was actually writing a novel with this famous novelist. They were writing a book together, and that's been buried. He's buried his life, and so the young 27-year-old disinters all this stuff, almost like dredges up this past that he thinks he's buried. It's a tragic past for him, and it's and what's great for me, of course, is it was originally written as a limited series. I wrote 8 episodes of a limited series, and then I got a call from Blackstone Publishing, and they said, "Rex, we're now a full-scale publisher." They only did audiobooks, and do you have anything? I said, "Well, I just wrote this limited series, but it's based on a novel I didn't write. I'd actually like to write the novel," because I knew the novel could go back and sell the limited series. And so, I then wrote the novel, and it is long. It's long because it's based on a limited series. It would be 8 or even 12 episodes easily. But the great news is our protagonist, Emily Snow, the 27-year-old, who comes into town like the lone gunslinger, and she discovers a crime, basically. And she, she's really challenged and put to the test. She crosses certain boundaries and lines. Everybody does in this book and in this story. It also has 4 really strong women characters too, a 27-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, and a 72-year-old. And right now, with limited series and the way they are with like Big Little Lies and other things, it makes it, it has real potential for, for that. And I can't give away anything, but it's the submission list is pretty impressive who it's going out to. It's a very impressive list. And fingers crossed, it possibly, there's a lot of books out there, but books are hot in Hollywood right now because they want, I hate to use these terms, but they want view hours because they're selling subscriptions and people are moving away from the theaters. People are watching things at home. And if you can give them an hour of something, say Mare of Easttown with Kate Winslet, you want to be in that world for an hour tomorrow night. And you want to be in that world for an hour the next night. And then if you really want to keep being in the world, they'll give you another season. And the great thing about Emily Snow is after this job is over, because this could be called a finite series or a limited series, you could end it, but she could also then get a job to go to Florence, Italy, to a closed archive and discover some new mystery there. You know what I mean? So it could easily be a continuing series of books as well. And that's the dream, of course, for me. So I'm going after some within the sort of boundaries of mystery fiction, but I'm not playing the formula. I'm going after some bigger themes,
Well, you just answered about 4 of my questions in one.
Good.
It's great.
All right, take it easy, Selena. We'll see you later.
You've alluded to about 4 of my questions in that one thing. You've already actually been in the Hollywood process because you're the author of Sideways. Right. So you've kind of had an idea of what it's like in that area. But one of the questions that I had was, what was your inspiration?
Well, I wrote an article about it, and my papers were taken, I just dumped 50 boxes off on a loading dock, and I came back, 9 months later, and I figured out, they just put them in cold storage. I didn't know, I had no idea what they did. I know that sounds really naive now. And then I was at a faculty club dinner, and I met the woman who processed my papers, and she took me down and showed me, and I was overcome. I was really moved. And and she became a consultant on the project, because I didn't know anything about the world. And I thought, God, there's a story here. And the inspiration was really kind of bringing my papers down and just being so moved by that one person had really gone in there and read my work and had to get into my personal life in a way. And, I don't know, it's hard to kind of describe how moving that is for an author, that somebody actually, knows you that well, in a way, but they're just doing their job. And like archivists are doing their job. They get into a collection. And so that's when I started thinking of something. I was originally going to write an epistolary novel. And I kind of, no, that doesn't have movie potential. Then I started to write, as I said, I was going to write the pilot for a limited series, but I was so swept up in the characters and the world. So this is the library where it's based on is an iconic library. If they go to Crime Reads Lit Hub and read the article, it's incredible. You see a picture of it. My youth, I spent a lot of time in that library. Now it's got thousands of students and it's a huge university. But, and I grew up in Southern California. In fact, the main character lives right where the person lives right here in this apartment, And so it's a coming home to me in many ways. And it's about what do you want your legacy to be too. So there's other themes in there, if you're going to bury this, but these other things are going to be in your archives, but there's people fighting for your soul. You've got his wife who wants his legacy to be sort of, somewhat squeaky clean. And then of course the archivist who's dead, she's in love with this man, and then you have a young archivist who thinks, wait a second, why is this stuff buried? I'm an archivist. This should be part of the historical record. I mean, she's just coming out. And then, of course, you've got the director of special collections, and her whole career is on the line. Because this could be compromised. She could lose this $25 million donation, and it's just going to. In fact, it was threatened, as we know, a year ago, and now they feel like they've covered it all up. And this pesky 27-year-old woman comes in and just, you know, kicks up the dirt again. But it goes into some, you know, as you know, some pretty deeper themes. I mean, it's a sophisticated mystery. I mean, I don't say that arrogantly. I say it, you know, at the risk of immodesty, but it is sophisticated. You know, it's not one of those books you just read really fast and then throw in the trash and give me the next one. It's not one of those, you know.
And you also started to talk about a little bit about the research that you had to do.
Yeah.
And you must have done a lot of research about the profession of archiving. And
Yeah.
what other research did you have to do?
Well, I mean, mostly it was that research, and then, you know, but after that, it's really it's a book about relationships, you know, and I could draw on things, you know, in my own life and other things, and so the real research was just getting. I knew I had a mystery once I'd heard about the dark archives, and I talked to some archivists about it. And I didn't realize that a lot of archivists putting things in the dark archives, which is basically big servers, but often without even a roadmap to what it is, because they want to preserve the historical record. I mean, the Smithsonian, apparently only 2 to 5% of their collection is available to the public. So some of it is restricted and some of it is just out there because they get all this content and they don't want to throw it away. They want to preserve it. And so there are archivists who do it. And in this particular case, you know, if the young 27-year-old were to take these compromising emails to her supervisor or to the director, they would destroy it. And that gets done all the time. Stuff gets destroyed. And especially in this day and age, I don't doubt there are archivists being hired right now to go in and scrub collections from someone famous who maybe said something, you know, that compromised them in a way a long time ago. And that's happening too. So it's really about what is truth, you know, and from that point, I'm writing a book that's, you know, it's about relationships, and that is, I at that point, archivists and archival stuff, I don't want to get too technical, but I had to research, you know, what happens when you go into, when an archivist goes to work and turns on their computer, and what comes up on their screen, and how do you get to the dark archives. And even archivists themselves are restricted from some of the information in their own special collections. Don't even have 100% access. Then it's easy as an author to go, well, what if they gain access without permission? So now they're in trouble, you know? And so, and, you know, that part is just, you know, it's just the part about what do archivists do. But as I'm hearing it from various archivists, I'm looking for that hole I can go down. So when I heard dark archives, I go, wait a second, there's this dark archives and there's no like finding aid telling me what's there. If I just went out there and had enough time and money and resources, I might find compromising stuff. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so, you know, that really sends a flare off in me, you know, right there, you know. So
not just for the archivist, but what is your favorite research story?
My favorite research story. Well, you know, I write, I was saying to someone the other day, I write from the inside out, Selena. I don't write from the outside in. So I know a novelist who, he's the other way and he's successful. He writes from the outside in. So he goes research cops and FBI profilers and stuff. And I'm not interested in that. It's when I know the institution, I know the university, I know libraries. So I needed to know about archivists. So I talked to the person who processed my papers, but also other archivists too. I needed to get all that information. But really, if you take sideways, the research was just me going up to the San Ynez Valley. I mean, the research is here. I'm really, I mean, the material is me, you know, and even in the archivist, it's a very personal novel. It's about somebody giving his papers and what is being done with those papers and who has access to them and privacy issues and other things. So I go into kind of different, with Sideways, it was me going up the San Ynez Valley and playing golf initially, and then discovering it was wine country. And then I went up one time with a friend of mine who's kind of like the Jack character, and we had 2-3 days, and, you know, and that was just sent off a flare in my head. And from that point, it's fiction, and the archivist is fiction, you know, and, but most of the research is being done unwittingly, or to quote a famous author once said, Rex, writers are like thieves. We're always working. So I bare my soul, I draw from myself, you know, and what's happening in my life. But unfortunately, some people, they start thinking, yeah, well, that must have really happened because I write in this very personal way. No, it's fiction. It didn't really happen, and, but, I can't stop people from thinking, well, I guess what they want to think, because I write in a very personal way, but it really is coming, the real research is really the life I'm living. I'm really writing, it's not autobiographical fiction like Rachel Cusk or somebody like that, which is true autobiographical fiction. It is, I'm trying to tell stories and create characters, but I'm drawing from things I know and worlds I live in. That's the most important thing.
Right.
That's what I believe in. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it's what I believe in. I don't like I like reading fiction that comes from a personal place. And mine, even with The Archivist, which is a big sweeping epic novel with 4 women characters, and one of them's written in first person, which was a little scary for me, but it's coming from a personal place inside. It's not like I research these people and I just kind of made it all up. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have heard from many different sources that basically you really should write what you know, write from what you know. And that makes the best.
I mean, there are people out there they will say the opposite. And I think even if you're totally fictionalizing, I can't go into, Sideways is the best example, but I can't go into a restaurant I've never been in before. When I'm writing, I need to be in that room. I need to smell it. And those things might trigger ideas just from having been in there. That, for instance, a server comes out from the left and comes over here. Maybe that's a bad example, but I need to be in that place in my head. I need to be in I often say my writing, or I try to have it be this, and it has the ring of verisimilitude, or the ring of truth. I want even the settings to be truth. I don't like it when people put me in a place that I know they haven't been. And I especially don't like it, especially in screenplays, but novels too, where maybe they did a little bit of research on a character, but they don't know cops. They don't know FBI profilers. They don't know lawyers, but they're writing about them. And, they get away with it sometimes. If they're really good storytellers, they can get away with it. But I can tell that they don't know them. I feel like I can. And I want you to believe that, that I did my research and that, that these archivists and who they are, they're human beings, they have hopes and dreams. A lot of them are frustrated writers, so, and they work in anonymity. That's another thing that I think is interesting. It came out of there, and I work in anonymity, so I can relate to what they do. But yeah, I write from what I know or what I can research and know best. For instance, I'm doing a deal where I go to New Zealand to write Sideways for New Zealand. But I'm not going to sit here and write it off of Wikipedia. But you know what? I could, Selena. Mm-hmm. I could probably fake it and get away with it. Of course, if it was ever found out, I would be, cancel culture would come after me. I'd be shamed. But the truth of the matter is, I wouldn't do that. Not only because I need to find the story. So I'm going to start in the north of the North Island, go to the south of the South Island, and go wine tasting in different places. I know it sounds like I'm not doing research, I'm on vacation to people, but the truth is I'm going to be looking for character. I'm going to be looking for different characters. I'm going to look story. And so it's not only seeing the world and taking pictures of it, I'm more interested in characters. And so that, and I'm going to have to find some Kiwis there to inspire me. And I know I will, because I'll meet this person, but I'll be saying, well, what about that guy who makes 1 barrel of Pinot Noir in this weird place? I want to meet him. You know what I mean? And then I'll find, I'll wend my way to the story. Then I've got to come back and take those ingredients and sort of alchemize them out and alchemize them into a novel, Yeah.
And then of course there's people like the science fiction writers who, they obviously, they've never been there. So
well, they have an advantage. We don't expect them to know.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't, I mean, God bless them, but I don't read science fiction. I have read J.G. Ballard in the past, and actually William Burroughs used to write technically kind of science fiction, but I like real characters. In fact, I mostly read women authors because they write from a very personal place. And when I was writing The Archivist, I only read women authors at night, only read women authors. I wanted to try to get into the psyche of women as much as I could, and it's I mostly only talked to women archivists too, because I wanted to know. I did talk to male archivists too, and I had archivists read the novel and I said, if there's anything in here that doesn't ring true to you, please tell me, and I would change it automatically. Anything that doesn't ring true, I would change it. But yeah, I do like to write what I know.
What was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting out The Archivist?
Well, I knew after I'd written the limited series, which is 535 screenplay pages. I mean, this is I just went and wrote the whole thing. So now I'm looking at a novel that's not going to be 300 pages. There's just no way. Because once if somebody paid me a lot of money and said, okay, give me a 300-page novel from that teleplay, because usually it works the other way around, Selena, in Hollywood, because I've spent a lot of time in Hollywood. I've written more screenplays, and I've also written and directed 2 feature films too. So I come from film and filmmaking. It usually works the other way around. There's a big novel and there's a short film. You know what I mean? So if you have this is a limited series, so it's not technically a feature film, but now you've got a big film, but a short novel. It doesn't make sense. You see what I'm saying? So the novel's expanded on it, and it's been done. I mean, if you take Sally Rooney's Normal People, which was a hit on Hulu last year, that's only a 325-page novel, and they got 12 episodes out of it. But I think I saw something, we were talking earlier before we recorded, but, this novel is long. I know that. And so that was one of the big worries that I had, that was going to be long, because deep immersive reading is required to read 400, 500, 600, God forbid, War and Peace, which is 1,500 pages. And I've read it, and the only way you can read it is read 50 pages a day, every day, to stay in it. And that takes 2 hours, at least for me. Otherwise, that novel is not accessible to you. And that saddens me about the youth. They can't go 10 minutes without checking their email or a like on Insta or whatever. And I'm on social media too, but the good side is Hollywood doesn't care about that, because they're going to break it up for you. And it's going to, because bear in mind, deep immersive reading means the brain is turning that page. But when you're watching something, you can drift in and out if you want, but what's really coming on, and this is, you got to give credit to Blackstone, because they're one of the big ones, is audiobooks. So deep immersive reading is being supplanted by deep immersive listening. And with audiobooks, if you talk to people, they want them to be longer, because they get into the voice and the world. They don't want it to end. And it's the same with limited series. They don't want it to end. An hour tonight, I want to go back to that world tomorrow. Please don't stop. Or if you take Killing Eve, for example, it was supposed to only be 1 year. But they were so in love with the characters, they just had the assassin continue to just keep killing people, because, they want to do it another year and another year or whatever. So yes, deep immersive reading, that was my biggest challenge. I knew I was writing a book for a time when big books are not wanted. I hate to say it, but however, and you can put a link to the article from Marie Claire, and it's been in New York Times and other places, is that books are big in Hollywood. They want the books to be bigger because they have more material. They're interested in what's called, I hate to use this, view hours. So the 2-hour movie might be the 2-hour movie made, not these Avenger movies, but made for adults that want, something that's more personal expression, whatever. They may be going away. They may be facing extinction, because there's nothing that says we have to have 2-hour movies. There's no law. Netflix is going to put out what people are watching, or Amazon. They're the ones running the business right now. And limited series are hot. And as a result, books are hot, because you have so much content in that book that you can get. They want 10 episodes, 12, and the possibility of it keeping going, because what they're driven by is subscriptions, not box office, and not even TV ratings. They're driven by subscriptions, and they need content. They need hours of content. So in that sense, I was ahead of my time by writing this as a limited series, But I remember about 10, 11 years ago, HBO did Mildred Pierce, the James M. Cain novel, and it had been done in 1960 with Joan Crawford. It was a 2-hour movie, and it was, it's not a great movie or whatever. It's kind of a camp classic in some ways, but Todd Haynes did it 11 years ago for HBO with Kate Winslet and Guy Pearce, and they literally transcribed the novel. And I remember standing up from my couch saying, oh my God, there's the future of the novel right there. They literally, because generally the way you adapt a novel is you read it, and then you have to put it away, and then you go write it, you distill it in your head and you write the screenplay. You have to almost forget about it. It's hard to be faithful to a long novel and get a 2-hour movie out of it, but not if it's going to be 8 or 12 hours. You can be really faithful to it. You still some adjustments. I won't get into some technical stuff about adaptations here, but so in a way, big maybe isn't so great for deep immersive reading anymore, because that's not the same as it was, because we're challenged by all this new media and everything's coming at us, and podcasts, and I mean, not to mention, and look, women read 95% of all fiction. Men tend to read nonfiction, but the sad thing is younger men, they're playing video games. They're not reading, and that's sad, because they're just melting their brains. I mean, they're not developing any cognitive skills. But that's a 50 billion a year business. So, I worry not so much about the future of literature. I worry about the future of the reader.
It's interesting when you were talking, I was just thinking about Bridgerton, the series Bridgerton, because it was one book that they took, The Duke and I, and they made it into a whole series. And it was really interesting.
If they're going to extract out as many view hours. I hate to talk like that, but those are the words they use, and hopefully it will have impact value. So instead of it being, instead of it being, a 2-hour feature and it either makes money and you can track it at the box office, that's not how success is being tracked anymore. It's being tracked by subscriptions.
So, okay. So what else can we expect from you in the future?
Well, I'm writing my autobiography, which has some people terrified. And it's called My Life on Spec. And that's my, because it's been quite a journey, I'm coming from the University of California, San Diego, made 2 feature films, went through a divorce. Mother had a massive stroke, younger brother stole all her money. And then I rebounded. I was completely nowhere when I wrote Sideways. I skyrocketed like a phoenix out of the whatever. Then I went into a dark hole that I'll talk about in my autobiography, and I've come out of that. And I've done, but next for me, so there is that. It's called My Life on Spec. It's 3 volumes. Volume 1 is done, and then of course there's Sideways for New Zealand, but that's going to be dependent on getting. I should be there right now, but an entry visa is still not happening there, even though it's close. They're close to opening up their borders. It's going to happen, and they want me there and everything else, so they can look forward to another Sideways sequel. But even more excitingly, I did Sideways the play. And it's right now on a national tour in Spain in 2 languages with 2 casts. But even more exciting, Selena, is Sideways the musical. It's completely done. We have all 18 songs are recorded. They're beautiful. We just did a concert of song in Sonoma, and it was wonderful. Just a concert of songs, but the full musicals, you have to be staged. And we have Kathleen Marshall, a 3-time Tony Award winner. She's on board attached as a director. We just talked the other day, and I wrote the book, I wrote the play. The play is based on my novel. The book is based on the play, and it will, and like I said, all 18 songs are recorded, and we could literally walk right into a workshop, into a rehearsal, right to we have to workshop it first to get hone it a little bit, but it is a fully completed whatever. And the play did really well. So that's something that's happening there, that obviously if we get to the workshop stage, I would be involved in that. And, yes, I have wines coming out under my name, but I'd rather talk about the writing. I'm really, first and foremost, I'm really excited about The Archivist, and my agent being very excited about going to the who's who of the most powerful women people in film right now, thinking, we've got a real shot here at a limited series. And then of course I would do the screenplay, and I would love to do it, because screenwriting, it wouldn't be raking over old bones. It'd be a chance now to fix the teleplay because now I have the novel that has some new material in it. And I can go back and I'll look at it. I would love that job. And, bear in mind, I wrote and directed 2 feature films a long time ago, and I come from film, and I'd love to go back into film. I don't want to direct it and leave it up to other people, but there's something really rewarding, like with the play, is I didn't direct the plays, but to see those actors take your words and bring them to life. And it's the same thing on screen. They bring them to life. It's 2-dimensional, not 3-dimensional. And that would be, to see The Archivist become a limited series is a real dream. Obviously, for a lot of people, they go, we'd love to see Sideways again, because I get those calls, and there has never been a sequel movie, and don't get me started on that story. So to go to New Zealand and, Sideways is written in first person from the standpoint of Miles, Paul Giamatti, me. So I'm older now and whatever, and where am I at? People would like to know. And well, I'm in New Zealand, and I'm now a successful author, I guess. And but something has to go wrong, and whatever, I lose all my money, or my credit cards are declined, and now I've got to find my way back somehow. But so those are the 2 main things: is hopefully a limited series with The Archivist. I'm supposed to go to New Zealand in January, and research and then write that book. And hopefully there would be a sequel movie finally that Alexander Payne and Paul Giamatti would love to reunite. And there's no better place to go than New Zealand right now. So.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I have some questions quickly about you being a writer. What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
The favorite part is, without question, the ideation and the actual writing. When I'm writing, so The Archivist was originally a limited series, and I wrote that, and it's a levitational experience. I'm escaping reality, and then when I wrote the novel, even though it's a very long novel, I wrote the first draft in 90 days because I'm coming off that limited series. That's the fun part to me. The hard part is taking it to the world, and it's the rejection. Sideways had over 235 rejections.
Wow.
Oh yeah, in fact, you can go, if you're ever in San Diego, go to Geisel Library and go to the Rex Pickett papers. They're sitting there. There's physical evidence of the rejection, because they send them to your agents and then he forwards them to you. Now it's probably all emails, and that part I just will never like. And with Sideways, it's very lucky that it ever got made. It really came down to one person, and it wasn't Alexander Payne. It was his assistant, Brian Beery, who doesn't get enough credit. Nobody wanted it. My agent had already said it was roadkill. It had been turned down, not just by publishing, but Hollywood. They all turned out. One guy got it. This guy, Brian Beery, gave it to Alexander. He loved it. He talked to me. They optioned it. So you got to think, well, he must be wrong. Hundreds turned it down. He must be chasing fool's gold. Oh no. He makes it and grosses $650 million and went over 300. How could 99.9% be wrong? And this one guy turns it into this, and we're still here today talking about it 18 years later, and I still get it. Last night, 500 people saw Sideways in Barcelona. I mean, think about that. One guy, and it wasn't just Payne, it was Brian Beery. What if he had been somebody else? Yeah. Someone else who just didn't get it, they would never have passed an unpublished manuscript to him. They would just thrown it over and grabbed the next one off the pile, because that's their job, is to go through all the, this was a solicited manuscript, at Endeavor Agency at that time, but still it's an unpublished manuscript. But no, he went to Payne with a ringing endorsement. Nobody wanted it. We wouldn't be here today. And so that part is just so fickle. I have no control over it. So yeah, it scares me that The Archivist is going out to these really powerful people, because you think, oh, we're going to see a limited series in a year. This is like, because Sideways didn't have that. I wasn't a successful author then. It was an unpublished manuscript. This is a real thing. It's a real thing. And I guess I do have some success now with Sideways. So you can, when you pitch, my agent pitches it to these people, and, and they say, sure, we'd love to read it. We're going, but that's what scares me. You can still be rejected by everybody. It's easier in Hollywood and the publishing industry to say no than yes. Mm-hmm. It's just easier to say no than yes. I talked to a very powerful agent at William Morris Endeavor when we did the play in London. And I said, let me just ask you a question. If you'd gotten this novel called 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James, and you didn't know her from anybody, whatever, and you read 5 pages, and he cut me off. He goes, throwing it in the trash. But if you'd known what it was going to become, I would have signed her in a heartbeat, because it's about, to him, it's not now, no, it's no longer the subjective, whether it's good literature. Even the author herself admits she can't write, she's just writing this, this kind of whatever, I don't read that stuff, but it doesn't matter. And agents would have just turned it down. So she published it herself, and good for her, she found a market, and, it's not literature, but it's just that fickle of a world, it really is. And that's the part I don't like. And when I write from a personal place, which we talked about earlier with Sideways, is a very soul-bearing personal, sure, novel. I mean, yes, it's comedic in places and everything else. The Archivist is not comedic, but it's also very personal in many ways. And when they reject you, it's not like they're rejecting you for your latest, I don't know, serial killer novel. Who cares? Yeah, maybe you're a little bit hurt, but okay, you write now you write a sci-fi novel. Now you write another whatever. I don't do that. When you reject my stuff, you're rejecting me. That's the part I hate. The writing is the pure part of the process. But there are you can't just write it and then just bury it and then go on to the next piece. I mean, I guess unless you're Emily Dickinson or Franz Kafka, that's what they did. And then they said, burn it. That's how lacerating. I mean, Kafka said, burn everything. I mean, that's pretty incredible if you think about it, when you consider his legacy. And fortunately, Max Brod famously didn't, but, but most people, of course, when you finish something, then you want to go to the world. And that's the hard part. And then if it goes to the world, and let's say you have some success, then there's another level. Then there's the critics, and there's their awards. It never ends. The bar just keeps getting higher and higher, and the rejections are harder and harder when you face them.
So what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process?
To me, since Sideways, but even before Sideways, I really think out a novel in my head a lot, and I always have an ending. So for me, the most challenging thing, and I learned this from experience, I need to hear the characters' voices in my head. And once I have those, and I know the world, like in Sideways or The Archivist, I know this world down here. I'm having fun. I'm on a journey. I'm just putting my foot in the stream, my inner tube in the creek, and I go down, and then after 3 hours, I pull aside and pitch a tent. I mean, I'm in the stream of the narrative. I know where the narrative is going. Sure, I'll take detours and stuff, but there are people out there who, they don't know where they're going. They get lost in a third act because they wrote themselves into a cul-de-sac. I know The Archivist is 640 pages. I knew how it was going to end every day I woke up. I'm writing to that ending. I'm on that journey. So, I think one of the hard parts is going through, I think, the line edits, which for your listeners, I'm sure they know the difference. A line edit is when you work with an editor, and they'll restructure sentences. They might also ask you to take out scenes and stuff. Copy editing is different. Now we're just down to grammar and syntax and stuff. And yeah, you've got to face what you have wrought. That's the hard part. When I wrote Sideways, when I got to the end, I was like on a high, and it was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to make another pass and clean it up. Now I've got to face what I've wrought. You just think the bloom is going to be off the rose. That part is hard, Selena. But the first draft for me is the most exhilarating.
Okay. What has been your favorite adventure during your writing career? Two actually, because The Archivist takes place here where I live in Del Mar, whatever. So I wouldn't call it an adventure, although it is an adventure in a world of a profession that I didn't know anything about. So that's kind of more of a cerebral, abstract adventure, I suppose. But actual physical adventure, certainly Sideways 3 Chile. I had to go to the country of Chile. I mean, that's way down there, and I met some wonderful people, and that was quite a journey. And then to distill a novel out of that, I was hired to write an original screenplay in Italy. And I went for 2 months, and I stayed for 5. And I was living in a villa all by myself in the winter in Tuscany. And the screenplay was never made. Sadly, the company lost their backing or whatever. But I was treated really well, and I got to spend 5 months in Italy. And of course, it was something about wine and a winemaker and somebody. I don't really remember what I wrote, but
I fell in love with Italy and the Italian people. They were so warm to me. Of course, it's nice to be the author of Sideways, and they want you to come to their winery and whatever. But those were two adventures that I'll always remember. And also early on in the '90s, going up to the San Ynez Valley, where Sideways is set, is 2.5 hours north of LA, and it was a getaway for me. And I kept going back again and again. Initially to play golf, discovered wine, and then started taking friends up. I said, this is great. 2 hours, you're out of LA, and you're in this bucolic, milieu, and it's kind of low density population, and let's go wine. It's changed now. And the Windmill Inn is now the Sideways Inn. It's almost a virtual Sideways movie theme park. It isn't overbuilt. It's still beautiful, but if you go into the hitching post, you better have a reservation because you might not get in. But back in my day, there's nobody in there. So that was kind of a journey over 3 or 4 years of going up there, and then finally one day being up there and seeing a crew of 250 people. Imagine you just wrote these words all alone, dead broke, and one day there were 250 people making a movie out of those words. It just started with those words, really. So I guess that's a journey too, in a way, but definitely Chile and Italy. It took me to another outside of Southern California, because I grew up in San Diego, so I'm very much a Southern California writer in many ways, I think.
Okay. So what is the greatest lesson that you've learned thus far in your writing career?
I have a lot of adages I come up with, but I'll tell you, I've coined a lot of phrases, but here's one is, and I don't like to rag on my ex-wife, because she went on to win an Academy Award for a short film that I wrote at the American Film Institute. She produced the 2 features that we did, and she just stepped down as the chair of NYU Tisch School of the Art graduate film. I mean, she's a heavyweight, but when she read Sideways, she told me to burn it. Wow. Yeah. And not only her, another very smart woman, she said to me, how can you be so personal? And I just had maybe 1 or 2 dates. I saw something promising happening. No, that was it. See you later. Goodbye. It's like, so here's to answer your question, because we know what happened with Sideways. No criticism is above criticism itself. Just because somebody says it doesn't make it so. Remember that. Now, you don't want to be arrogant if 10 people are telling you it's too long, or it's, this character is whatever, but they say, that character is unlikable. Well, maybe they're unlikable, but they become likable. Again, no criticism is above criticism itself. Just because somebody says it, I'm sorry, doesn't make it so. And I am the living proof of that. I've got 235 publishers on 4 separate sets of submission who turned down a book that became a movie that grossed $650 million. How could they all be wrong? And so for me, the best lesson is, stick to your guns, stick to your original vision. If it doesn't happen, then keep going, keep moving down, and keep honing your voice. Maybe they'll come back to that work. Maybe you were wrong. Maybe it wasn't really great or whatever. But, I just think that just because, I remember I wrote my first novel I ever wrote when I was 21 years old. And I'm not going to go into the story, whatever. And a really close friend and great guy. And I made the mistake halfway through the novel showing him the first chapter. And the first chapter starts with the character who's very bleak, and he attempts suicide, but he fails, and he ends up in a gully. It's based on a true story. And he just couldn't take the first chapter. It's just, oh my God, this is so bleak, Rex. No. He was trying to be nice. And I was so like upset. I was so like, took it so, I stopped writing the novel. I never finished it. So the other piece of advice, don't show anybody anything until you have completed it to your satisfaction. Yes, you have to take it to the world, but don't show it to anybody, because they can derail you. They can say the wrong thing, and they maybe were trying to be helpful, whatever. So I don't, after the success of Sideways and all the rejections, I'm not arrogant at all. I take it from a lot of people. I still take, but I don't, if it doesn't ring true to me, if it isn't just like, it doesn't make sense to me, but sometimes you'll know it makes sense. Yeah, you're right. We need to drop that whole sequence of scenes. And I had an editor tell me to do that from the Archivist, and I did. The main character goes to see a therapist, and it's great in the limited series because you really need to get more into her interior life, but we didn't need it in the novel because I have the ability to do that. So I just dropped it. I mean, when it makes sense, you just do it, but you have to stick to your guns.
Right. Okay. Now, I have some questions about you as a person. Just quickly, what are your passions when you're not writing? Your hobbies, and how do you make time for your non-writing hobbies and things that you love?
Well, I used to play golf, but when I was in Italy, I had a retinal detachment and in my left eye, and I can see out of it fine. They did great surgery, but I don't have the depth perception to play anymore. And there's so much time. I mean, really, honestly, my passion is really, I come from movies, and movies was a real passion of mine, and I used to see, this is before Blockbuster, you had to go to a theater to see a movie. And some of you listening out there might even remember that. And I'd probably see 200 films a year chasing movies, but really it's literature now. There's so much to read. There's so many great books out there. There really are. And there's not enough time when I was 20, I thought I could read the world's literature, Selena. I really thought I could do it. Now I know I can't do it. So I love words, and I think I stay in words, and hold on a second. My other passion. So I haven't had a pet since I was a kid. And a friend gave me the special needs cat, Max. He has congenital rickets. So his legs, come down and give out on him and stuff. And there's Max.
Aww.
And he's coming around. He's doing much better now. And he's like, he's kind of my new little guy. Hey, Max. Hey, buddy. Yeah. So, and that's, I think also too, Selena, just, answer a lot of fan mail. I've got, I think, I didn't make a lot of money off of Sideways. People think I got rich, and now I'm trying to leverage it. So my play, when that goes up, like I'm going to go to Spain. So my passion is like really now kind of looking back on my work. And I don't say this to be solipsistic or to be self-indulgent, but to enjoy the people who are still fans and not turn away from it, that go to those plays. And of course, if the musical happens, to be a part of it, I think my passion is really just, obviously there's fewer sands in the, in the top of the hourglass than there were, but, and so I really want to make the best of the last, whatever, 20 years or whatever I have, and really, I don't want to waste, even though I love golf, I don't want to waste my time there. I don't want to waste my time watching TV or sports or anything. I just don't want to waste my time. It's so I really live for, great movies, but great literature and seeing my work, and being there when the play is put on, when the musical is put on, or doing an interview with you and talking about writing and giving back, that's a kind of a passion to me. I'm very open and generous about it. Not that I have any answers, I don't, but it's a crazy world. But other than, hobbies and stuff, I make really great pour over coffee, and I'm actually a really good cook, and I try to be modest about that, but it's really just, my passion really is writing, and it could be just email.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have with you when you're writing?
I have two computers. One is a 13-inch laptop, and I do write actually now on a couch. I used to go to a desk for a long time, went to a desk. And then one day I was just like doing a rewrite on my play, and I didn't leave my laptop. And, but I also have a desk now with a laptop, and it's a stand-up desk. So I'll stand up at it, and that gets me really focused, because I find I'm not really going to emails and other stuff, because that's really an intrusive thing. Or I will write, just on my couch, as I'm there. So I have two laptops, a bigger one that I'm talking to you now. So I'm sitting at my, this is a stand-up desk. I'm sitting, but I can also be standing too, like this, and I'm typing. And this, it's great for my back and everything else. And then sometimes I'll go over to the couch and then put on my 13-inch, and the two computers are synced up, so that's what I do. That's kind of my writing thing.
Okay. And do you need to have a food or drink or any special?
High-end, really high-end coffee. I'm very snobbish about it, and made very certain specific ways. I try different things. And I won't drink a lot. I might have just an 8 ounce, and I might make a second 8 ounce because I want to be able to get to sleep at night. I might take a lunch break. Sometimes it takes me in the morning till 10:30 to really kind of come awake, because I go to bed late at night. I'm reading, and then but that's it. I just keep my coffee at a certain temperature in my thermos, but this is really good stuff. And that's really, that's it. I once tried, when my marriage was failing, I tried to go to an office. We thought that would help. And I just didn't feel right. I guess I need the refrigerator over here. I need some things. I got some stuff on the wall, my little talismanic objects, that I have.
You need your cat.
Well, now there's Max, and but he's over there, and yeah, he's my buddy. He's the sweetest little guy, So, no, it's really just, having the right keyboard. I have a very specific kind of keyboard that, fits my fingers, and, and that's really, doesn't get any more, but I definitely type. I know they're in the Archivist, as the book they're writing, they write by hand, and that was taken from, we called it The Drowning, but actually it's taken from Kazuo Ishiguro's The Crash. So he's a Nobel Prize winning author, as you know, and his legacy work is The Remains of the Day. He wrote the first draft in 30 days. His legacy work, and he went into what he called The Crash. So he researched it for a year, so it's in his head, okay? And it's not a super long novel. And then he just woke up and he wrote to lunch on a writer's slope by hand in a notebook, just scribbling like that, and then wrote all the way through to dinner. Then after dinner, wrote 3 more hours, but he knew it was all going to be over in 30 days. And, his wife knew to leave him alone, and there was no socializing for that 30 days, and that was it. Now, many drafts afterward, but he wanted to get the first one out. And he doesn't even like to talk about it because he's a Nobel Prize winning author, and this is his legacy work, and he wrote it in 30 days. Well, there's more to it than that. He's obviously a genius, A, and B, he did research it for a year. Like I said, I wrote The Archivist, which is twice as long, in 90 days, the first draft. So, but a lot of the work had done before, the preparation, but yeah, it's, I don't know. It's, when I'm in that flow of the story, I'm living it in my head. I never stop writing, and that's why I need to read. I need to take walks along the bluff and think,
Do you have music, or do you like silence?
If there's problems out there, with noise, there's a leaf blower, which they're going to ban in California, thank God. Or just, if there's some noises, I will immediately put in my AirPods Pro, and I will sync it to music, and the music cannot have lyrics. I do not want to hear anyone, but I might listen to Miles Davis Sketches of Spain, but I don't want it to be too electronic, even ambient music. Yeah, I do. And I love that, locks me in. In fact, the new AirPods Pro has a new feature. They've got these 6 white noise sounds, and one is waves. And I can just there's unwanted sound coming, I'll just put those in. I need to block those out because they'll make me angry. If there's someone talking down here, outside my window or something. In fact, the beach now has gotten more crowded since the pandemic, because it's actually a pretty desolate beach here, and people are talking on their phones like crazy. Like, my God. So now I got noise pollution when I'm taking my beach walk, because I don't take my phone with me. So here's something that'll make you laugh. I'm thinking I'm going to put my AirPods in, and as I'm walking along the water's edge, I'll be listening to waves in my AirPods, so I can block out these people talking on their phones. But anyway, so I don't typically listen to music if it's quiet. It's a certain quiet day. But as soon as I start hearing noises, I immediately put those in, and I go to some kind of non-lyric ambient or whatever music.
Okay, sounds good. I just have 2 more questions for you. Where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? Basically, I have to put a little plug in for Annie's.
I hope so, yeah.
And
I mean, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but when I was young, I was a really isolated, alienated young guy. I grew up in San Diego, it was a bunch of stoner surfers, and I didn't want to be that. When I went to the university, it was a small university. I'm a shy person. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I am. And I trolled bookstores. I mean, there, Warwick's in La Jolla, but another one, Mithras bookstore. I'll never forget going in there. I got a settlement from an accident of $1,500, which was a lot of money when I was 19. I bought the entire collected works of Carl Jung, all 20 volumes in. The person was shocked in one purchase, Selena, all 20 volumes. I took a quarter off from UCSD, literally just took a gap quarter, and that summer, and spent 6 months reading 5 hours every day, all 20 volumes. But I kept looking at these big black books, and I'm glad I chose him over Freud, who's completely now superannuated, and Jung isn't. The whole archetypal, Joseph Campbell here, that's all started with Jung. And I used to go to these bookstores, and it was discovery for me, and people Amazon, as much as I hate them, we can get on that subject, but the truth is, yes, they have 10 million books. So I sometimes I'd be frustrated when I go to a small bookstore like yours. Back in those days, they'd have to order and I'd have to wait 2 months. So in that sense, Amazon has a kind of an immediacy. And with audiobooks, of course, they're downloads with Audible. So there is that. And of course, I read on Kindle because of my eyes, but independent bookstores have I would sometimes go 2-3 times a day. Seriously, because I just, I felt like it was like a little mini home to me. I was living alone and whatever. And then I'd buy a book of poetry or something. But when I bought those collected works, they were, of course, happy because I dropped, about $1,000, and that was a long time ago, but, they have a special place in my heart because the really good bookstores, what they've done is they've taken the millions of books and they've curated, hopefully the Archivist, and Sideways, but they've curated, so you don't have to say, hey, you don't have that book, when I have to say, when Crown Books came in, I just, oh my God, I stopped going to bookstores, because then it was just bestsellers, and then Barnes and Noble, I'm sorry, they feel corporate to me, and Borders, they still were trying to be indie, but that one privately owned, and this is happening in France. 3,500 independent booksellers, and they're going after Amazon. Good for them. In other words, you're not going to beat us by undercutting cost or whatever, because we have a minister of culture and we value these stores, because I think it's a place to go. And you can talk to somebody like you and say, hey, I don't know what my next read is, but I like this kind of book. I'm looking for, I don't know, books by women who are writing from a personal place. You go, God, I just read this novel by Sally Rooney. Maybe you should check it out. And, there's a dialogue and there's somebody, there's a personal connection there. There's no personal connection on Amazon. Then you got to read these, these amateur reviews, and don't get me started on that. So I'm giving you the plug for,
Okay.
I know it's been hard, but I think that people, this younger generation want now that palpable experience. See, books were palpable to me. It was not just people. There was a book you could pull out. Then there was a chair, sit down and read a few pages. I don't know. It was nice and cool inside, and I felt like I was, doing something positive for my mind. And where Amazon, it just, it's all about, algorithms and it just dumping so much stuff on you. I will admit I buy a lot of books there, but it's mostly Kindle for me now, and it's mostly and audiobooks too. But anyone I can, like I ordered some of my books. I need more here because I give them out as gifts. I ordered them from Warwick's. Maybe I'll order them from Annie's. Seriously, I don't care if they cost more, because I want you to stay alive and stay in business. I don't want it to all be, because what will happen with Amazon at some point, if they're not making money curating literature and they're just pumping out junk, if that's how they're making money, then that's what you will see. So you're holding down the fort of some sort of integrity and respect for the art. They're only about profits. They'll just go where the profits are. So you put in all the plugs you want, because I have a special place in my heart for independent bookstores. I grew up in them. Remember, corporate bookstores weren't around back then, really. It was all independent bookstores in my youth. And that's where my life changed, was in bookstores and the University of California, San Diego, and the library too. My life changed. And so that's why this is very personal to me, because that's where I discovered great writers, and would go to book signings sometimes if I was, if they were lucky to come to San Diego, which they weren't that much. And then, I started to be exposed to other brilliant minds, and it opened, bookstores really became a kind of a hub that opened me up to the world. If you think those books opening up to the world, my God, there's Henry Miller in Paris. I'm going to Paris with him, or Anais Nin and her diaries or something, or whoever it was, great it's a world of discovery in a small room.
That's very true. Very true. And independent bookstores, you just walk in and they just feel so nice when you walk into an independent bookstore. I agree. So how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Well, thank you for saying that. And thanks for having me. I just go to rexpickett.com. I mean, there's,
Okay.
there, I try to update that as much as possible. I am on Twitter, at Rex Pickett, and, and also, I mean, you can write to me, I'm just, Rex Pickett at Gmail, and that's on my website. So, I'm pretty, but, and of course you can just Google me. And Rex, there's press releases about stuff, and or go to YouTube, and there'll be this on YouTube. You type in Rex Pickett, and I'm sure this will come up. So it's pretty easy to follow me on social media.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been really great, and hopefully you will sometime get over to Worcester and come visit us.
Yeah, I would love to. All right. All right, Selena, thank you so much. And
okay, well, thanks for joining us, and we will be talking.
All right.